When the autumn winds swept through Maplewood, a small American town nestled between sprawling fields and thick pine forests, 22-year-old Jack Whitman stood on the cracked front porch of his late father's house, staring out at the fading leaves. The cold air bit at his cheeks, but it wasn't just the season's chill that made him uneasy. It was the weight of a life that seemed to be slipping out of his control. Jack had grown up hearing stories about his father, William Whitman, a man who worked the steel mills by day and studied accounting by night until he eventually opened his own small business. William was respected not because he was the wealthiest man in town, but because he was the kind who kept his word, who worked until the job was done, and who never gave up even when the odds pressed hard against him. People called him the man who could, a quiet reference to the kind of determination you rarely saw anymore. Jack wanted to be like his father, but life had other plans. After graduating high school, he tried college, only to drop out when money ran short. He'd worked a string of odd jobs, unloading trucks, mopping floors at a diner, even a brief stint selling used cars, but nothing stuck. Every time a setback came, Jack felt himself withdrawing, convincing himself it was fate, that maybe he just wasn't cut out for much. One gray morning in early November, Jack received a letter from the bank. The house his father left him was on the verge of foreclosure. The roof leaked in 2 places, the furnace barely worked, and the property taxes had been unpaid for months. Jack sat at the kitchen table, the envelope trembling in his hand. "Maybe I should just let it go," he muttered to himself. That's when the memory of his father came back, not the tall, strong man who once carried him on his shoulders, but the exhausted figure Jack saw late one winter night years ago, sitting at this very table. William had been staring at a stack of unpaid bills, his hands calloused and cracked from long hours at the mill. Jack, barely 12 then, had asked if everything was going to be okay. His father looked him in the eye and said, "Jack, you don't quit just because the mountain's high. You start climbing, step by step. That's the only way to be the man who can." Those words echoed in Jack's head now like a challenge. The next morning, instead of sending the keys to the bank, Jack walked down to the local lumber yard. The owner, a stocky, gruff man named Hank Miller, had known Jack since he was a boy. "Heard about your trouble," Hank said, leaning against the counter. "If you're looking for work, I can use an extra hand. Pay's not great, but it's steady." Jack took the job. The first week was brutal, early mornings, heavy lifting, and aching muscles that screamed by nightfall. But every time he thought about quitting, he remembered his father's words. After work, he'd come home, patch the roof with whatever scrap shingles he could find, and spend weekends fixing broken windows and repainting the peeling porch. Word spread in town about what Jack was doing. Neighbors stopped by to offer tools, paint, and even a few dollars. Mrs. Thompson from 2 doors down brought him homemade stew, saying, "Your dad would be proud." Still, the journey wasn't without setbacks. One freezing night in January, the old furnace finally died. Jack sat in the living room wrapped in 2 blankets, staring at his breath in the air. He was tempted to call Hank and say he couldn't make it in the next day, but instead, he layered up, went to work, and asked Hank if there were any extra hours he could take. Hank, impressed, started giving him small carpentry projects. Slowly, Jack learned. He made mistakes, crooked cuts, nails bent sideways, but each time, he fixed them. He began to realize that being the man who can wasn't about never failing. It was about refusing to stay down. Months passed. Jack took side jobs fixing fences, repairing porches, and mending leaky roofs around town. He saved every dollar he could. By summer, the property taxes were paid, the foreclosure was halted, and the house, though still humble, stood solid and warm. One Saturday morning, as Jack was sanding the porch railings, a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped a man in a suit, Mr. Daniels, the owner of a construction company in the neighboring city. "Hank tells me you've got a knack for this kind of work," he said, looking around at the improvements Jack had made. "I'm looking for someone to manage small renovation projects. Pays better than the yard. Interested?" Jack didn't hesitate. That job became the stepping stone to something bigger. Over the next few years, Jack learned everything he could about construction, budgeting, and management. He worked long hours, often late into the night, and never turned down a challenge. Eventually, he started his own small contracting business. The first year was rough, long days, tight budgets, and clients who sometimes doubted the young man's ability. But Jack kept going one project at a time. Word of mouth spread, and soon his company became known for reliable work and honest dealings, the same reputation his father once had. Years later, at a local town meeting, Jack was invited to speak about the importance of perseverance to the graduating high school class. Standing at the podium, looking out at the sea of young faces, he told them the story of the bank letter, the leaky roof, the winter without heat. He told them about the nights when quitting seemed easier and the mornings when getting out of bed felt like lifting a mountain. Then he shared the lesson his father taught him. Life will hand you storms. It will knock you down and dare you to stay there. But the difference between the man who can and the man who can't isn't luck, talent, or fate. It's the choice to get up every single time. The audience was silent for a moment, then erupted into applause. As Jack stepped down from the podium, a young man approached him, eyes wide with admiration. "Mr. Whitman," he said, "I was thinking about dropping out of school to work at the gas station. But maybe I'll stick with it. Maybe I can be the man who can, too." Jack smiled, clapped the boy on the shoulder, and said, "You already are as long as you keep climbing." And in that moment, Jack knew his father's words had not only saved his home, but had shaped the man he had become, the man who could.